Alright, welcome to a gray, ucky day in Nebraska. Don't go down dirt roads, they're muddy, and everywhere you walk is kind of icky. I don't know, just kind of one of those gray days. So, hopefully you're getting to do this work while you're cuddled up on your couch with a blanket around you and a cat keeping your toes warm. So, what we're going to do, so in the book talks a lot about some text analysis and different things, so we're going to kind of expand on that. So what we're going to do, take that first, take my previous work back out of there. All right, so what we're going to look at is we need to figure out how we can create a program that's going to count syllables. But so the example in the book that you get when you work through it says, oh, consecutive vowels are going to be also considered as a syllable because it's based on vowels. So we can make some corrections to that, and we can change that just a little bit. So a couple of things we need to work on. We know that we're going to open a file with this. And so we need to have some kind of a file name. So very similar to what we've done before, we need to get a file name out of our user. So file name, and we're just going to use the input, enter a file name. So we're going to take a file, and we're going to be able to open it. We're going to then take it and put it into another file. So we're going to read it as, we can use our input file. We're only doing the one, so that's kind of an easy name to use. We're going to use an open. We're only going to read this file. So we're going to open it as an R, or read. And then we're going to put all of this into one single item. So Python has this great ability to store multiple items in a single variable. And so that's essentially what we're doing here. So we're going to put all of that into one we're just going to call text, or you could call it well, text makes sense because that's what we're working with, but you could call it anything. And then we're going to use our dot notation, input file.read. And so this is going to take whatever is in the file we upload. And so we can go out and create one real quick. So we could start Notepad, and we could create a file that's got a list of words in it. So what I might do here, we might even take our directions, and I'm just going to copy those into, or part of them, into a text file. So I'm going to save those, and where I'm going to save them, I need to be able to find them, so I'm just going to call it text.txt. And I'm saving them in the same place I've stored all my Python files, so I know where it's at. So I'm going to upload it so I have it available here. And that we called text. And you could use one of your others you've already created. I just have a short one here so we can actually see what's going to happen with it. So our next section, or the very first piece we're going to do, is we want to be able to figure out how many words we have in our text. Well, that one we can do pretty easily. And we've already seen the length command, but when we bury it or use it inside of the text.split, so again, another one of those that's built into our language, now I could actually do a print statement and do words and see exactly how many are in there. It's one of those built-in functions in a lot of other languages we have to go through a pretty onerous process to get to that point. So if I run this program right now, give it some space. So if I run it now, enter a file name, and we called it text.txt, it says, hey, there's 60 words in there. Perfect. You can check it. Let's see. I come down here, and if I added, in all cases, this will apply, or something. And then I rerun this again. It should change that number for me. That's what I click on that one. File name, so text.txt, and I think I added 6 or 7 words. 6 words it is. So that part's pretty easy. What's a little harder, though, is to figure out how many syllables and such are in a word, and that's used in that Fletcher curve. So if you have words, you can see how does my text score. So there's a pretty established scoring system for computing that. So we can use those formulas to our advantage. So let's do a couple of things. So one of the things we have to do is we have to go ahead and figure out how many syllables are going to be in a word. So, not syllables, or syllables. So syllables, and we're always going to set it equal to 0 to start. Get rid of that, any garbage that's in there, so we can start out. Well, we also know what our vowels are, and we're going to do our split based on those vowels. A-E-I-O-U, and then because they're different ASCII characters, we also have to do that in capitals. So A-E-I-O-U. So we've put those into this variable called vowels, and we can actually look at that. We can say, all right, well, can I search through my stuff? All right, so we're going to create a loop. And an easy way to do this, we could do our for loop, and we're going to just use a generic variable, something like word. You could do X if you really wanted to. And then we're going to use that text.split again to break it into pieces. So in other words, it's going to loop through every individual word in that text, whatever we have. So we have a couple of rules that we can think about in here. So we call them vowels. So let's think about a way we can do that. So we want to search for any of these characters inside of that word. And we can actually do that really, really easily. So let's take a look. I'm going to jump back into where the book text, but I'm not going to. If you look at your book's text, you've already got some pieces of that. So I'm going to grab. Let's see if I can open it with Notepad's fine. All right, so this is actually available inside of your book. So we're going to kind of use this, and we're going to cheat a little bit. So we need to figure out a couple of other ways to do it. So we've already shown you a quicker way to do some of this. So our sentences, one way we could do that, and the book shows you this, is we count up all of the characters that we run into for end of sentence characters. And that's not necessarily a bad way to do it. It works, but we have a quicker way to do it in Python. So what this does is count up every period, The problem with that, think about if you had an ellipse at a sentence, it's going to count that for 3 and such. So, anyway, we do have some issues with this, but we'll work around that. Counting our words, counting our sentences. So we're going to copy this one. So we have our sentences really quickly. Now, we haven't fixed the issue of what happens if we, or I know you guys have all seen somebody that says like happy birthday and puts like 37 exclamation marks on it. We haven't solved that, and we'll talk about how we can solve that here in just a second. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm also here going to do the counting the syllables piece. So again, this is already available. Hopefully you've worked through it in the book. And our job in this is to actually solve an error. So counting a syllable containing consecutive vowels as multiple syllables. All right. See if there's anything else we need to steal off of here. Yeah, let's just grab the rest of this. There's no reason for us to have to retype that. All right. So right now, if I ran this and I have all my variables in the right place, let's run it again and make sure that I have the variables named correctly. Indented block. So somewhere I've got something weird. What have I done? Indented. Let's do that. All right. So enter a file name. It was just telling me it's looking for something and we don't have it in there yet. All right. So enter a file name text.txt. Now, I have it already where it's showing me the number of words, but enter a file name. Okay. txt.txt, enter. Okay. So what it went through, and it's done a lot of little pieces in here. It says the grade level equivalent is 8. The index score is 67 point repeating numbers. We have 66 words and 96 syllables. Or syllables. Well, when I look back at my text, hopefully I don't have any issues with those, but I know that adding words that have double vowels is going to cause me some issues. Come back over here and make myself some room to look at this. So, as we create this for vowel and vowel, so in other words, we're comparing, and we're saying syllables equals syllables plus, and so we're adding, using this word count to add those one at a time. When we encounter something with a double, now we have an issue. We don't have any way to see that. So, there are a lot of ways we could do this. So, one way we could do that is we could actually put things like an if statement in here. So if, and keep track of all of those vowels. And so if we see a vowel followed by a vowel, then that means that we would have to change our count. All right. It's probably a little easier to do something like that, because here we have the words with an LE for those that end in ES, ED, or E. So in that case, we subtract 1 because we found that vowel that way. So what we might do is something like this. All right, let me make some space here. So we're still going to use this particular loop here. So everything in this loop, in this block, is still got a loop. And we're going to create another variable So in this case, I'm going to call it vowel duplicate. And I'm going to say it's equal to. And in this case, I'm going to do something a little different. So I could say zeros and ones, but one of the really nifty things about Python is it can put in Boolean variables directly. So instead of having to use 0 and 1, I can actually use false. So to start with, at the very top of this loop, I set that duplicated vowel equal to false. Now, I can create a loop. So I'm just going to use the word character, or you could use, we've already used text, we use vowels, so just another way you could do that. So I used, let's see, for character in Word, make sure I have the right variable, word.ends with, okay. So for character in Word, so each time we pull in that set, we're going to create a loop among those. So I'm going to have an inside loop in here. So now I'm going to do an if statement. But I'm going to do something a little differently. So those is kind of the way my brain, and I like this idea of negatives. You can also do it positive. So if not, so again, a Boolean operator. So if I don't see this, if I don't see vowel, what do I call it, duplicate, but I'm also going to put an and in here because there's a condition I'm going to look at. I'm going to look to make sure that character is in there. So, if neither one of those things are true, then I'm going to say, all right, it is a syllable, and we're going to add one to that. So, what do I call it? Syllable. Did I use syllable or syllables? Can't remember. Syllables equals syllables plus 1. So in other words, we increase that. We're also then going to flip this, and so we're going to see vowel duplicate is going to flip to true. And notice those are keywords, they light up. So the opposite side of that is also going to be true. So I use my elif. And again, I'm going to use my not. So if it's not a character in vowels, then I'm going to set that vowel scene. I call it vowel duplicates to false. So what this is going to do is we're going to search through those vowels again. And we're going to look and see, have we seen that before? If we've already seen it before, it's going to flip that, and it's going to take away a syllable. Otherwise, it's going to add a syllable. So we can make sure that we don't double count those. So the weird part is using the nots in front of there, because we made it a negative instead of a positive. So if we work through the Boolean logic, it works, or should work. So if I do that, I haven't added a whole lot to this. I've kept the same pieces here. But what I'd like to do then is I'm going to take this piece then out. We've duplicated. I don't want to come up with two loops. In fact, you could see, let's take our same piece here, assuming, of course, I haven't made any hideous typing errors. So here it says we're 4 sentences, 66 words, 96 syllables. So let's run this, and it'll actually print out, hopefully, something different. Text.txt. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. And because we duplicated that effort, Now it says we have 203 syllables. So clearly we've got something a little off there. So I'm going to delete this out because we just replaced that with a little better, hopefully a little better way of detecting that. So if I run it again, somewhere I have an indent issue. Okay. Oh. I managed to hit a... And Python is very picky about indents because that's how it knows where blocks are. So sometimes just hitting that enter key accidentally or a space, you can do that kind of an error. So enter a file name. And so now it's corrected it and actually has the right number of syllables. So it didn't change that a whole lot, but all right. So grade level is a 7. So just a way we modified that code a little bit. So the other issue we have in here with this one, I'll point out, is what vowel are we missing? Are we missing a vowel? What's that tricky, weird character that sometimes acts like a vowel? Y. And we don't deal with it. Now, luckily the frequency of it isn't enough to really upset those results, but it can present an issue if we ignore that. So all we had to do for this one was change that and modify it a little bit from some items we had in the book. I'm certainly not going to make you memorize this indexing score here that they've come up with. And there's research papers on it. It makes sense. It gives you a way to quantitatively say this text is something, this is another one, and it's based on a mathematical formula. So all we had to do in this case was fix our issue with the doubles. Now, we've come up with this. There's probably 20 other errors that we could have in here, including things like, hey, what if I open this file and it doesn't exist and we don't have any error on those things? But for now, we've fixed the problem as directed here. So I am going to stop this one.